Okay, we got about 1,000 folks in here already. We usually cap out around 6 or 7,000. So as everybody continues to pour in, me and John are going to get into it here. So for those of you who don't know, the man sitting across from me right now, this is John Rich. This is one of the most iconic country artists of our time. John is a super outspoken dude in the country music space. And if you're familiar with some of John's past work with Big and Rich or some of his recent work, he did a song called Progress not too long ago, which is one of my favorite songs. And it falls right in line with what I do. So without further ado, everybody, meet John Rich.
Hey, everybody. Good to be with you, Tom. Thanks for inviting me on. It's pretty crazy, man, that the way you and I met. A lot of people have been asking me on my channels on social media, how did you and Tom even meet? How did this even happen? And I said, well, it's crazy. We've actually never personally shaken hands or given each other a big old hug, which is coming up soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because during the lockdowns, all the concerts got shut off, all the buildings got boarded up, and I was kind of meandering around online just listening to new music, and I ran across Tom MacDonald, and I went, what's this guy all about? So I listened to one song and I went, holy God, listen to that. I'm going to listen to another one. Boom. And I said, I got to listen to another one. Bang. And by the time I knew it, I spent 2 or so hours doing nothing but listening to Tom MacDonald music. So I said, I got to find this guy. So I went on Twitter and I found your channel on Twitter and followed you. And then I think I put out a tweet and I tagged you in the tweet like, man, hey, I'd sure like to meet you or something like that. I think you're great. And it's a couple of days later, you noticed I'd hit you and you followed me back. We were able to send each other a direct message and then get on the phone. And we had that first phone call, Tom, and I think we talked for almost 2 hours about what was going on in the country, what the government was doing, what we were watching Fauci and everybody else do, and our concerts are shut down. All the people that we know were completely boarded up. The fans couldn't go anywhere. And I realized after talking to you on the phone for a couple hours, this is a kindred spirit to me. Yeah. Even though we're very different in the way that we look and where we come from and what our music sounds like, we think the same, we feel the same, we see it the same way. And from that conversation, it was actually about 2 years until End of the World was even a conversation. It's really just been a friendship, a camaraderie, a like-mindedness that I think is so important in these days and times when, as you talk about in your songs all the time, how divided people are, but they don't realize they're really not that different from each other. They're divided because of the crap that they get told every single day.
Exactly.
And you and I are a good example that if you can manage to see through the noise, you can actually see commonality with a lot.
Absolutely.
So that's how we got to this point. That's kind of a long story, but I've been asked that 1,000 times, Tom, since the End of the World came out. How did this even happen? So it's a really good story. Tom, it's our love story. It's our love.
It is our love story. And that's probably more accurate than you know, because I remember the day that I saw John Rich pop up on my Twitter with @Tom MacDonald. And I called my sister immediately because my sister, she went to Big Valley Jamboree in Alberta many years ago, and she didn't stop talking about the Big and Rich show for a month afterwards. And that was initially kind of like what introduced me to John Rich and to Big and Rich and to your music. So I was super into it and became a fan at that point. So all these years later, to see that tweet pop up on Twitter, my sister was the first one I called, and I called immediately. And I said, you'll never believe who just hit me up on Twitter. It was John Rich, and she freaked out. But I think a lot of the people in the chat here, like, I don't really, and I think the same goes for you, John, like, I don't really do many collabs. I don't really feature on anybody's songs. I don't work with other people. I largely dislike a lot of the folks in the music industry, so I keep to myself. That's one of the reasons why I'm independent. I just lay low and do my own thing, and obviously the message in my music has created more enemies than friends, especially in the music industry over the last 5 years. And I know that you're very selective with who you work with as well. so, and I usually, it takes me some time. I get to know people and I become friends with people, and I see how we mesh as people before I ever even crosses my mind how would we mesh musically. So, 2 years down the line, we've talked a handful of times and watched each other from a distance, and I've seen a lot of the stuff that you've released, and you've seen a lot of the stuff that I've released. And although it sounds very different sonically, content wise, the things that we're talking about, the things that we care about, the things that we believe is important to put forth in our music, it just became more and more and more apparent that what I think is important, what you think is important, those things fell in line. So, and it was kind of a nerve wracking moment for me to reach out and ask Mr. John Rich if he wanted to be on a song with me, because nobody likes being turned down. So I was nervous about that,
Well, our
dude,
mashup. Oh, so you're making a good point. So in the music industry, mashups happen because record labels and managers get together and think it's a good idea for their artists to mix it up because it's good commerce. The fans are going to love it, and that's how they do it. And in this case, it had nothing to do with that. It was about there's very few artists out there willing to say what Tom is willing to say or willing to say what John is willing to say. Very few that are willing to do it. So if we're going to do something together, we're probably the only two guys that would even consider doing this. Maybe Aaron Lewis. Aaron Lewis would do something with you. I would love to hear that someday. But I think we're few and far between. So the the whole the locking of arms and the back to back posture that we've taken to me is it's honestly, listen, I've sold millions of records, played concerts all over the planet. I mean, I've been very blessed. I've far surpassed any of my wildest dreams, honestly, that I could have ever imagined.
oh, you're the man.
Something like this is so special because the industry is not behind me. Matter of fact, they're not only not behind me, they're against me.
Actively working against you.
Behind you either. They're actually against Tom MacDonald. We represent, uh, we break the idea that you have to have the industry to succeed. They want to brainwash artists, and to use one of your titles, into thinking that if you don't have the industry, you don't have all their ammo and everything they bring to the table, you might as well just keep waiting tables or parking cars or stay on the farm, son. There's no point you even trying this. And it's just not true. I think on a creative level, and it's really what I wanted to talk to you about it more in depth where everybody could hear it, is my opinion is that content, talent, and persistence wins. It wins in the end. If you've got talent, real talent, and you've got great content, I mean, if you look at your content, Tom, it rivals any content out there. In my opinion, it's better than the content that's out there.
Thank you.
So when you come with great content, you've got real talent, and then that persistence part kicks in. A lot of people in this country think that America owes them something. They think if they don't get what they want, then they're going to go throw a brick through a window. And I remind them all the time, we have a right to pursue happiness, not a right to be happy. You don't have a right to be successful, to be happy, to be popular, to be famous, to be rich, to be any of those things. You have a right to pursue your happiness. That's it. That's the only guarantee America has, the right to go for it. And so
Absolutely.
guys like you and I go for those things. And because of the people watching right now, songs that we put out become chart topping songs and get a lot of attention. If it wasn't for the fans, man, nobody would know who the hell we are.
Exactly. And yeah, and persistence, like you said, is a big part of it. And that seems to be like a thing that's happened in America over the last 10 years is I don't know if it was social media or the internet or the reliance on those things, but it seems like these days people are afraid of hard work. And if there's one thing that I've never been afraid of, it's hard work. And I think that the same goes for you. You're working day in and day out just like I am. And like you were saying there, you said not only are the industry sort of not behind us, they're actively working against us. That's effectively like sort of made us the counterculture. And how bizarre is it,
I mean, what happened to all the outlaws, man? I mean, it
dude?
used to be that rap, you think about Ice Cube, and you think about all the rappers that were like, I mean, they were the counterculture. They were the ones saying, I don't care what you said, I am not going to bend the knee to that. And in country music, you had guys like Merle Haggard and Johnny Cash that were out there. You know, Merle saying, when you're talking down my country, son, you're walking on the fighting side of me. And then you had guys like Bob Dylan coming out and writing songs about Vietnam. And I mean, the pen is mightier than the sword. That's a real statement. I mean, if you
Absolutely.
singers and songwriters had a large hand in shutting down the Vietnam War, then you're not paying attention, because that's exactly what happened. You know, music was a catalyst that brought millions and millions of people together underneath the banner of a 3-minute song, and it affected what the government wound up doing in that war. And so, yeah, at this point, it seems like all the big voices in music, for the most part, have been co-opted by the industry, and they're, even though a lot of them are really great people and they think just like you and I think on a lot of levels, they're not allowed to put that in their music. They're
How
told specifically, you can't do that interview, you can't sing that song, you can't talk about that subject, sit down, shut up, we own you, do what we tell you to do or you're out of here.
and this is the beauty of being an independent musician in 2023. And you know what? Like, how bizarre is it that in 2023, love of country, love of freedom, exercising freedom of speech, the truth has become counterculture. That right there should tell you how backwards things are.
Yeah. I mean, if telling the truth is a marketing angle, where are we now? I mean, that's what it is. I mean, telling the truth is a marketing angle.
Yeah.
That's really what this is. It's pretty incredible. But here we are, you know, and there's not many of us. And listen, the people watching right now, the people that share this music, they are helping make the statement. You know, anybody watching right now, you know, when you go spend that $1.29 and download the song, the whole industry sees that. The whole woke industry, they see it and they absolutely hate it. It's like gasoline in their eyes.
Yeah, it is.
Drives them crazy. They're like, how is this even possible? These guys aren't part of our system. Another one of your songs. They're not part of our system, so this is not supposed to be possible. Yet there it is, and Billboard has to report it. And so, you know, we've got a few more hours here. I think maybe 12 or 18 hours.
Yeah, yeah. Just so you know, John, there's 6,000 people in here right now, and like John was just saying, we're under 24 hours away from our downloads. They stop counting towards the Billboard charts in less than 24 hours. So there's over 6,000 people in the chat. If there's folks here right now that haven't headed over to iTunes or haven't wandered over to Amazon and downloaded "End of the World" by myself and John Rich, please do. There's 6,000 of us. 6,000 downloads to sneak in right before the finish line would be massive, massive, massive. It would help us big time on the charts. And, you know, like we've been talking about, me and John are competing against a system who is an industry that's actively working against guys like John and I. So, you know, even if half of us here, 3,000 downloads got in tonight, that's a massive, massive statement. And John and I both really appreciate it. And there's going to be people in record labels pulling their fucking hair out on Tuesday morning next week when those billboards come out and me and John are sitting at #1. So if you haven't yet, the link is pinned in the comment.
Pulling their hair plugs out.
Pulling their hair plugs out.
By the way, this is tobacco, everybody, if you're wondering. This is my John Wayne cigar. Remember in the old Westerns, John Wayne would smoke the little skinny cigars, and so did Clint Eastwood. He'd smoke the little ones. So I'm celebrating tonight because I think we are going to be #1, Tom. So I'm having a little tobacco here in Tennessee.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think you probably have a little Clint Eastwood flowing through your veins too. So it's very fitting. Yeah, so I think we're going to end up at that #1 spot, guys. But the link is pinned in the comment section. So just click the link, download it on iTunes. If you don't have an iPhone because you hate Apple, first of all, I respect that. But head over to Amazon and download it there if you don't use iTunes. And John and I really appreciate it.
So, Tom, I'm going to ask you a question or two as a fan of yours, okay?
Sure, yeah.
And we're both songwriters, and I've always told people that I think a blank sheet of paper and a pencil are the two most powerful things in the world. You know, the Constitution of the United States started out as blank paper before someone put a pen to it. The pages of the Bible started out as blank pages before the inspired word was put down on it. And every great song that's ever impacted your life started out as blank paper, and some guy or gal sitting there with a pen or a pencil has started writing down some words. And so I wanted to ask, you know, in your writing process, because you and I have never written a song together, that's another thing we're going to have to do.
We're
One
gonna
of these,
have to.
write a song. But when you're writing one, um, you know, your songs are so directional. Uh, like when you talk about the system, that's one of my favorite songs of yours is The System, because it is absolutely spot on. Do your lyrics come to you that, I would use the word distilled? Your lyrics are, there's so much information in so few words, which by the way, Tom, that's the hardest thing to possibly do. Simplicity is the hardest thing. The most information with the fewest amount of words, that is always the goal of a songwriter. In my opinion, the greatest that ever did it was Johnny Cash. I think he said more with less than anybody that ever wrote a song.
Yeah.
Tom Petty is also up there in that kind of class, but you say a whole lot with very few words. So what is the process for you when you're writing a song like that?
Um, well, it definitely, it doesn't come out true to form. That's for sure. It starts off as like I had the title for The System, because it's something that I had been referencing a lot in conversation and in interviews, and I've used the term in other songs. And obviously, the system is like a much bigger concept than just like one or two lines in a song. So, so I thought the system is a great title. It's sort of all encompassing of many different issues that are going on, not in just America, but in Canada, North America, the entire world. So it started out as just a massive, overly complicated mess of what I thought the system was, and where it starts at birth and how it ends at death and how it restarts with the next generation at that point. So a lot of my more political, socially charged records start out as a mess of ideas. And I'll sort of like, I draw a lot of contradictions in my music, but between different things. Like, I said in this song, New World Order, you, you call a dad a deadbeat for neglecting his boys, but a mom kills a baby and you call it pro-choice. So I really try to draw these contrasts, these contradictions that sort of exist in our culture right now. And it starts off with a mess of ideas and a mess of concepts. And I slowly boil it down and boil it down and boil it down. And I take 8 bars and try and figure out what is the most concise, digestible way that I can say this 8 bars. And maybe I'll get it down to 4 bars. And then I'm looking at the 4 bars and I'm reading them and I'm trying to figure out, okay, like, there's different, yeah, how do I make this 2 bars now? Because there's different ways that people would interpret these 4 bars, but I want to make sure that what I'm trying to say is said. And I'll boil that down to 2 bars. And now I got 2 bars and I only got 14 to go. So it's a long process sometimes, but it starts off as a mess, as like sort of a brainstorm. And then I just boil it down and boil it down and boil it down until I'm left with the essence of sort of what I'm trying to say, which is sometimes kind of a bummer because a lot of the stuff that I talk about in my songs is more deserving than 2 or 4 bars.
Right.
But it's just like, it's about being digestible too. And so to me, it's like, let me say this in the most digestible way as possible. And obviously, there's all sorts of complexities that exist underneath that 2 bars. But if I can get people to start thinking or start talking because of these 2 bars, they will dive down into the complexities and have those conversations amongst themselves.
You're exactly right. And I've watched a bunch of the reaction videos to End of the World. And you're exactly right. When you hit them that hard with only 2 bars, they hit pause. And then they talk for 4 or 5 minutes. And they go down the tunnel. about what all they just heard in that very short period of time. That's a real art, man. I hope everybody that's watching right now understands how rare of a talent that is, Tom. That is really rare. In country music, those people, the names would be Merle Haggard would be one of the first ones I would name. You know, he was able to say volumes in 10 or 15 seconds. You
Yeah.
know, when you heard when Johnny Cash says, because you're mine, I walk the
The
line.
line.
Okay. That's all you got to say, Mr. Cash. Because you're mine, I walk the line. And just hit pause. They didn't have reaction videos or videos all for that matter. But if they would have, everybody would have stopped and went, man, ain't that the truth?
Yep.
It's as
Yep.
simple as that. Because you're mine, I walk the
The
line.
line.
You are the reason I hold the line. You are the reason I keep myself in check. You are the reason, right? And it's just so simple and so powerful. But record labels do not, they don't foster that attitude. You know, record labels are all about, and the industry of music is all about as explosively complicated as possible. I mean, watch a NFL Super Bowl halftime show or the Grammys for that matter, and go, what the hell am I looking at? I
We
mean,
all watched them this year.
what happened to the lyric and the message of the song? What happened? It gets washed up and all this crazy stuff that they do. And I think that's one reason why I liked your music so much is that you came at it like a country songwriter would come at it. It's just in rap.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Um, well, when I started being a musician, I wrote a lot of country songs and I wrote a lot of rock songs when I was just a kid, 16, 17 years old, and I noticed pretty quick that I didn't have the John Rich voice for country. I didn't have the Robert Plant voice for rock. Um,
You do have a
but
cool voice, though. Your singing voice is very cool, man. It really
oh,
is.
thank you. Yeah, I mean,
Tell yourself,
th-
you got you got a really interesting singing voice.
well, I appreciate that. Thank you. But competitively, like in within those worlds, the country world and the rock world, like I'm pretty low on that totem pole. So I knew that there was things I wanted to say, um, and I had a message, and I just had to find the right medium for that, and that was hip hop. So, and you know what? Like when you go back to talking about record labels and not fostering those types of ideas and stuff, I tell these guys all the time how difficult it is for guys like you and I in this industry, that's this sort of neo progressive, ultra woke environment that you know that we're that it's very difficult for us to exist in. So we have to create our own ecosystem and our own with our fans. Like these guys are the record label. This is all we have is our fans and our people and our supporters. And I was thinking about it when we were doing an interview with Bongino the other day. Me and John Rich were on the Dan Bongino show. I don't know if you guys know him, but he's a badass. You guys got to check it out. And John said that you know there's nowhere for artists to run these days. The artists can't run to the hills because the bad guys own the hills. And I started thinking to myself, you know, all of this cancel culture and the industry, the woke industry, sort of leaving guys like us, leaving us out to dry, hanging us out to dry, and alienating us and isolating us and leaving us behind and segregating us from the group. It's dirty pool, but it might be the best thing that ever happened to us because you pushed me out into a corner. And at first I was frustrated that you pushed me into a corner, but then I took a look around and I noticed, hey, there's fucking John Rich right there. And there's Aaron Lewis right there. And here's a bunch of other people that you guys have extradited from the music industry. And these guys are just as powerful as what you guys are doing. Because you know what's just as powerful as a radio station or what's just as powerful as a record label? John Rich's Twitter, Tom MacDonald's Instagram. And our fans. So, you know,
say your power comes from your fan base, Tom. We know
exactly.
your fan base is your power. That is the gas in your tank. That is the wind in your sail. I would also just to add to what you're saying, the way the music industry as a whole, there are some good ones still left, but man, they're chained to the floor at this point, and their mouths are taped shut.
Totally.
Um, as a whole, I don't want people like that to think well of me. You know, I tell people all the time that if everybody likes what you have to say, you're not saying it correctly.
Absolutely.
Now, you gotta know this, and a lot of your fans don't know anything about me at all. So I'll give you just a quick background. My dad has been preaching in prison since he was 19 years old. My dad turned 70 this past summer. He still goes to the prisons and preaches. And you ask my dad, why are you preaching in a prison? He's an extraordinary speaker. He is a, I mean, he will make the walls shake when my dad preaches, and he could be preaching probably in the biggest churches in America. And I said, why are you preaching in a prison? He said, because they need to hear it the most. They're
Absolutely.
never going to be able to hear it unless I bring it straight to them. And he says, I'm not here to make people happy. I'm here to do what God told me to do. And that's what he told me to do. And I'll never be a rich guy, and I'll never be a famous guy, but I'll die knowing I did what God told me to do. And I'm okay with that. So we have to adopt an attitude in this country right now that it's okay. Not only is it okay for people to not like what you have to say, it is required that people don't like what you have to say. If you
Totally.
had the approval of some of these people in our country right now, you're doing something wrong in your life. You need to recalibrate your thinking. In the New Testament, Jesus himself said, this is in the red letters, he said, I'd rather you be hot or cold, but if you're lukewarm, I'll spit you out of my mouth. Now, if you could have heard that in the Hebrew and in real time, that's probably as close as Jesus ever got to cussing. He might have actually said the cuss word. I don't know. I wasn't there. But that's quite a statement to say, I would spit you out of my mouth. Pick a side, man. Be hot, be cold. I'd rather you be the baddest bad guy in the world. At least you're dedicated to it. But people that ride the fence and sit in the middle are worthless. They're contributing nothing. And I don't believe anybody is really in the middle. I believe people want to try to sustain in the middle, but I think if you really dug down into their heart and soul, they're going to have a real opinion. They're going
Sure.
to really know what they really believe. And there's no more time left for people to be on the fence. You need to say what you think one way or the other. I'm okay with either side. Say what you want to say and be who you really are, and let the chips fall where they're going to fall. No more wishy-washy. I think that's another reason why your music hits and why my music hits, is because there's no denying what we think and where we stand.
I think that I think you're right. I think that a lot of people deep down inside, they know where they stand, but I think they're afraid. I think that there's this new phenomenon that's happened with the sort of invent of social media, that everybody that has an opinion, that is not scared to speak their truth, that's not scared to scream their opinion, no matter how unpopular, they become victims of trial by internet. And they think that they're going to get canceled on Twitter and it's going to ruin their life. And what they don't realize is, A, is Twitter's not a real place,
Yeah,
and B, people have tried to cancel me a million times. And when somebody says you're canceled, your only response is, no, the fuck I'm not.
that's
And
right.
and it's over.
That's right.
So
Yeah, I mean,
so
exactly, exactly. And I would also say this: America was not built on the backs of fearful men. Let's go talk about the Declaration of Independence for a second. So, the men that signed their name to the Declaration of Independence, they knew that they weren't just signing the Declaration of Independence, they were signing their death warrants with the British Empire. If the Brits ever caught anybody that had signed their name to that document, they were going to hang them by their necks, by their own trees in their own front yards, burn their houses, and erase their families from history. I mean, erase them. And they signed it anyway. Now, why did they do that? You think that because they were just really excited about having the British Empire on their ass? No, they signed it because they had this little phrase called "Give me liberty or give me death." And that's all it was. It was one or the other. There was no choice C. That was not a bumper sticker, hashtag, website, or social media handle. Liberty or death is what it took to found the United States of America. And I think in this day and age, we have forgotten who the country was founded on, what attitude it took to found the country. We
Sure.
had to beat the biggest empire in the world to even have a country. And now we stand at this very, very specific moment in time where our country is under assault, our future is in jeopardy. People cannot afford to be in the middle anymore. They're going to have to remember whose shoulders they're standing on, because guess what? My kids, and if you got kids out there, these next generations of people, they're counting on us, guys. They're counting on us. We are the shoulders. This right here, this shoulder, and Tom's shoulder, and all y'all's shoulder. They're going to stand on top of our shoulders, and history will look back and say who stood up and who laid down. And I believe
Abs-
that's where we're at. I think it's that plain and simple, Tom.
I think you're totally right, man. I think that America. Look, I grew up as a kid in Canada. Um, my dad and my grandfather were always into politics. I'd sit at the foot of my grandfather's bed and I'd watch the news with my granddad and my dad, and I would listen to them talk about politics. And they, ever since I was a boy, I heard these guys champion the United States of America as the boldest and the bravest and the freest and the most baddest ass country in the world. And my entire life, I'd wanted to move here. And I moved here permanently almost 10 years ago. And I've been here for about 7 or 8 years solid. Um, I came to this country with $800 in a wallet and potential. My dad walked me to the airport. He shook my hand before I got on a plane and he said, "You're going to the United States of America. You're going to the land of opportunity. The only thing you got to do is work hard and live up to your potential." That was almost 10 years ago. I came out here, I worked my ass off. This country and the people here gave me everything that I could have ever wanted. I get a hard time all the time for not waving a Canadian flag and screaming how much I love Canada. Um, this place and the people in the United States is the first place I ever felt like I was at home. And I've been all over the place. I've toured through Europe multiple times. I've been all across Canada. I never felt like I was at home. I came to America and I felt like I was home.
Mm.
The people here gave me everything. I achieved my wildest dreams. The United States of America, without the shadow of a doubt, is the greatest country on earth. And I think that the country, from an outsider's perspective, what I've witnessed in the last 8, 9 years here is that the country has lost its way a little bit. And that's okay. That's going to happen. But it's up to, like John said, us to figure this out and to have stable shoulders that the next generation can stand on. And as independent artists who can't be silenced by a record label, who can't be canceled because we don't have sponsorships and relationships with these giant corporations, it's our responsibility to stand out here on artistically on the front lines and scream the truth at the top of our lungs. That's our responsibility. And we are the only people that can do it, because these other artists signed to labels are not allowed. They'll get dropped, they'll get canceled, they'll lose their sponsorships, they'll lose endorsements, they'll cost people millions of dollars. So it's up to people like me and John and many other independents to stand out here and not just toe the line for what's popular in country music. Country music's become pop music. Hip hop has become a vehicle for computers and headphones. It's up to us to stand here and set a new precedent and set a new bar and make the type of music that we're making. And that's, to me, a big part of why End of the World is so friggin' important in a time like this. And I think the fact that it is #1 on the charts, they like to say on the news and they like to say in the magazines and the newspapers that people like John and myself and people with our feelings, that we're the minority here and that we're the outspoken few, like we're some sort of rejects. But that's not true. We're the majority here.
Yep.
We've just been stifled and silenced and made to believe that we're the outcasts and the rejects and the minority here.
Yeah. So the second you don't believe it, their game is over.
Exactly. And when you see songs like End of the World at #1 on the iTunes charts and #1 on Amazon and 3.5 million views and about to be #1 on Billboard next week, that should be all the proof you need to say, oh, hey, I'm being lied to. There's a whole bunch of people out here that feel the same way as Tom and John. There's a whole bunch of people out here that feel the same way as me. Because if there wasn't, those songs wouldn't be #1 on Billboard. They wouldn't have 3.5 million views.
Hear them in the first place, Tom. You wouldn't even be allowed. So I was going to ask you, hey, Tom, what if one of the major record labels said, you know what, Tom, we want to sign you? And you're looking at this record
No.
going, you would know immediately you're not going to be able to put out songs like what you've been putting out. The only reason you hear songs like End of the World or The System or Brainwashed or Fake Woke or songs like mine like Progress and songs like that, the only reason you even get to hear those songs out in the general public is because we don't have record deals and we don't have to answer to the industry. If we were signed up, guys, you would never even hear those songs. That's all you need to know. And so
Absolutely.
I'm making a great point, man, that, thanks to the fans that when we put music out, they respond. It gives, I know how you feel. I can tell you how I feel sitting here in Nashville. And like I said, I've been all over the planet, man. I've been on every stage you can think of. There's no better feeling than to see the fans respond to a piece of music and there's no record label, there's no kind of structure around it, there's no marketing budgets. We've spent a total of $0 promoting this song. It's because of the fans. And guys, that is the absolute best feeling an artist can ever have.
100% agree. Yeah, it's been, and just like you said, like we've spent a total of $0 promoting this song, and that is the strength, that is the power of the people, of you guys, all 8,000 people. We're up to 8,000. All 8,000 people in here right now. The only reason that we're able to do what we're doing is because of you guys. So, big thank you from me and John. Yeah, it is.
When are we going to play this song live, Tom? We got to find a place to play this song live. We got to do.
It looks like you got a place behind you right there.
I do, yeah. So we're inside my house in Nashville. That's the stage back there. So that's in my house. I grew up in a double wide trailer in Amarillo, Texas. I have a high school diploma. That is the extent of my pedigree. Ain't nothing fancy going on with me. But I always thought, man, if I ever hit a lick, it'd be kind of cool to be able to play live music in my house. So some guys build recording studios and other guys do other things. I said, no, I don't want a studio in my house. I want a live music venue in my house. So Tom, I would love it. And I would make this the official invitation. You and Nova, you got to grab Jared. You guys come to Nashville and let's do a Tom MacDonald show right back there. And let's live stream that one time.
Yo, I accept. We will line that up for this year. That would be incredible. And I want to point out one thing real quick. When John said that we've spent a total of $0, where I was trying to get to before I lost my train of thought was, if you go on iTunes right now, or you go on Amazon right now to go download the song, and we'd appreciate it if you did, you're not going to see any banners. You're not going to see a Tom MacDonald banner. You're not going to see a John Rich banner. You're not going to see any front page promotion anywhere. And that's one of the crazy things here is that just based on the power of the truth and the people that the truth resonates with, just on the basis of that, we have been able to compete with the biggest artists in the world, artists who have spent millions of dollars in ad budgets on promoting singles and promoting videos and promoting themselves across social media. And John and I, with End of the World and with your guys' help, have been able to not only compete with these people, but defeat these people, which is really, really mind-blowing when you consider that me and John on live right now, this is the biggest piece of promotional material that John and I have done for this entire record.
I like that for a title. Compete and defeat.
Compete and defeat. That's a t-shirt,
good, man.
Right?
That's pretty good.
That's a t-shirt right there. So
yeah, but that is what it is. I mean, I hope people understand how impossible that is. And honestly, this was not happening pre-COVID. I mean, it was for you. You were rattling off hits and stuff, but for guys like me in mainstream country, man, if you didn't have country radio behind you, if you didn't have the CMA and the ACMs and CMT and everybody else, there was no chance in hell you're going to get hurt. I mean, we had to go out here and figure out alternate routes to get to the ears of our people, figure out how to do that, and then come with the right kind of content that came straight out of our hearts, the stuff that we wanted to do that the labels wouldn't let us do. I mean, this has been a pioneering expedition. We're like Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett out here. I mean, chopping down
with face tats.
Yeah, and you're driving a wagon, and honestly, you know, when you talk about cowboy hats and face tats, there's another line. But
There you go.
when you're in a battle, you don't care what the other guy looks like. You don't care what the other guy, where the other guy comes from. You just care that the other guy has got your back and that he's fighting the same fight you're fighting, and he wants to win just like you want to win, and that becomes your ally. And that's what we've become here. And I know there's a lot of people that have watched this video that go, who the hell's the guy in the cowboy hat? Why is Tom singing with the guy in the cowboy hat? And on my side, they're going, who's the guy with the face tattoos? Why is John singing with the guy with the face tattoos? And those are great questions to ask, because they're going, how does this even happen? It's because we're in the same fight. We have the same motive. We want to win. We want to wake people up, and we want to make our art the way we want to make it. We don't want to be told what to do and when to do it. We're going to do it how we want to do it. And when the fans respond like they have, and you see Miley Cyrus sitting at 2, and you see Tom MacDonald and John Rich at 1, buddy, that's a statement. And trust me, the whole world sees it. It's like Dan Bongino says, if you want to give the whole entire industry 2 of these and call me in the morning, download the song. That's all you got to do. And tell your friends to go download it. If you're sick and tired of what you're dealing with, this is one outlet to show them how you really feel about it.
Dude, I love that when you're in a battle, you don't care about what the guy next to you looks like. You care if you can rely on him, if you can trust him, if he's got your back and you're fighting the same fight. I love that, because it's something that gets thrown around a lot. So it's almost just overused. But we really are in like a culture war right now. And we are. And it extends into pop culture and music and movies. And look at the stuff that Disney's done over the last couple of years, and look at the shift in mainstream entertainment. So it's just like, it's crazy to me that a couple weeks ago, I had a song called Ghost that was on the radio, and I got canceled off the radio in Canada because they cited that they had found some sort of insensitive rhetoric, whether it was in one of my music videos or on my social media. Nobody really specified, but they yanked the song off all the biggest radio stations in Canada, which was crushing for me, because I was quite proud of, with my history and my track record and the music that I've been able to make, to sort of like infiltrate the system and then end up on their radio. I was pretty proud of that. And they canceled me. And I'm not a big radio guy, but I know they're playing WAP by Cardi B, and they're playing a.
You're insensitive, but how about Cardi B? That's exactly what I was thinking. I mean, what are you talking?
And a plethora of other, music that's glorifying violence and romanticizing drug abuse, and convincing people that their self-worth is somehow directly connected to the brand of clothes that they're wearing, and hypersexualizing women, and over accentuating how money and cars and wealth and like all of these sort of destructive things. And that's on the radio all the time. But Tom MacDonald can't be on the radio because of some shit he posted on Instagram 3.5 weeks ago. So it's just like that.
No, that's not. No, Tom MacDonald can't be on the radio because Tom MacDonald is not our property.
Right. And yes, 100%. And so when people throw around the term culture war so frivolently all the time, it sort of like starts to fall on deaf ears after a while. But when you actually are in this stuff, when you're me or you're John, and you're dealing with these types of situations all the time, and you're dealing with these types of people all the time, it is very, very obvious that there is a very real culture war taking place right now. Not just in our communities and our cities and our towns and our countries, but in our entertainment and in our education system and in a lot of different areas. So, it's, I think this goes back to when you're saying when you see Tom and John Rich above Miley Cyrus or above whoever it may be at number two. These are, to me, these are lights in the darkness. This is hope. This is a sign that we can win this culture war, and we win it all the time. But they never they but they that doesn't make it to the news. They don't tell anybody. Oh, they're not going to announce, "Hey guys, we're losing the culture war right now." Instead, they try to convince us that we are on the losing end, but we're winning.
That's fun,
So,
man. No, no, they're not going to announce that they're getting their ass kicked. No, they're not. They're not going to do that.
but we will.
Well, I mean, listen, it doesn't matter because they don't have to announce it because the stats speak for themselves. And at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is you're trying to put content out there that makes people think. I go back to the reaction videos of End of the World. I mean, go look up a couple of those after this live stream. It is unreal. I mean, they'll listen to 15, 20 seconds and go, pause, and they go, hang on a minute, what? And they back it up, and they're trying to digest what Tom just said in like 15 seconds, and their minds are blown. And then that country chorus comes in, and here's this dude in a cowboy hat up in the sky. By the way, Nova Rockefeller, thank you so much. First of all, Tom, I've never given you a big hug, but I'm going to hug Nova first whenever I get to meet you guys.
Sure.
Because first of all, she's better looking than you, but second of all, the talent that girl has, the eye that she has, the vision that she has, there's God only knows how many thousands of hours go into her sitting there and frame by frame by frame working on these videos. And you look at a song like End of the World and what Jared was doing with CGI. I mean, guys, you're talking about, if you had to pay for a video like that at a major record label, you're going to spend $250,000
Yep.
minimum to get a video anywhere near that. But here's Tom MacDonald sitting out in California in his house, and Nova and Jared are sitting in rooms, and they're sitting there going back and forth on edits, and this is the product, and it goes #1, and 3.5 million people in 5 days have seen it, and it's going there. Guys, this is what Tom and I are trying to tell you. You are not defeated. You are not the minority. We are the majority, and we are the victors. The only reason you're defeated is because you believe you're defeated because the minority wants to make you think that. It is an absolute lie. It is not true. And guys like me and Tom are proving that it's not true. And I hope everybody takes our story and our example and they bring it home to wherever they live in their zip code. And they go, you know what? They're right. I'm only defeated because I believe I'm defeated because I've been told that 24 hours a day for the past however many decades. They've been brainwashing us with this crap, and it is crap. You are not defeated. You are on top. And it's just like a bully when you're in school and the bully is always shoving you around at your locker, and you say, I tell you what, meet me in the playground after school. Meet me in the parking lot after school when the teachers aren't around. And that bully walks up to you. The first one with a broken nose loses, because I guarantee you when that smaller guy breaks that bigger guy's nose and he tastes his own blood rolling down his throat, he has an attitude adjustment, as Hank Williams Jr. would say. I gave that man an attitude adjustment. And it's funny how they immediately back up. They don't come back a second time. Once you break that nose, once you show them you ain't playing around, they back up because they're punks. They're weak. Their position is weak. Their position is a lie. Their position has no gravity to it. Their position has no spirituality to it. Their position has no historical benefit to it. The historical the historical relevance to what these people stand for is death and destruction. Have you ever seen a successful communist nation? The only thing communists rule over is death and destruction. That's it.
Yep.
So when you look at what's going on in America right now and you ask yourself, why are these people destroying our country? It seems like they're doing it on purpose. I can't make sense of this. These have to be the stupidest people there ever were. I hear people say that all the time. I say, oh no, they're not stupid. They're destroying it on purpose because in their mind, if they can bring America down, if they can put America on its knees, where America has to reach up for help,
Exactly.
then they have all the control. Well, that's the essence of communism. That's
Dude,
what you're looking at right now.
I say that to people all the time. I made a video about it a couple weeks ago. I see people looking at the train derailments, looking at inflation, looking at the price of gas, looking at the natural disasters, looking at the economic disasters. They're looking at all of this horrible stuff going on, food shortages, medication shortages, and they're looking at all this gnarly stuff, and they're saying, "Oh, good God, the system's broken, man. The system's broken." And I'm saying, hey, all that horrible stuff that you see going on right now, the stuff that's making you upset, the stuff that's making you weak, the stuff that's making the country weak, those are signs that the system is working exactly how the system was designed to.
Correct.
Those are not symptoms of a broken system. That it is working exactly as it is intended to.
Yeah, they are applauding in the back rooms of the White House and in places in Congress. They are applauding the destruction. They're popping champagne corks when they see what's going on in this country right now. And let me tell you another thing. There are as many dirty Republicans out there than there ever were as Democrats. I promise.
Ain't that the truth?
If anybody out there watching thinks that I'm some kind of partisan loyalist, you got another thing coming when you're dealing with me. Because I can tell you right now, I'm going to say a drastic most of Republicans are blackmailed, leveraged, bought and paid for, working with the enemy, whatever, some version of that they're doing. They are not on our side. The left and the right are two wings of the same bird, man. That's
absolutely
flying. And none of them have our best interest. This comes down to we the people. This comes down to what do we want to see happen. And I can tell you right now that as a dad who watches his kid hit baseballs through a chain link fence every weekend, and what do I want more than anything to see? I want to see my son, who's been practicing and practicing and practicing. I want to see him get out there, and I want to see him at least get on base. And at best, I want to see him knock one over the fence. I want to see a home run. Well, guess what? The dad sitting right down on the other side of the fence wants his son to do. And this guy is totally opposite of me and his beliefs and his political leanings. Guess what he wants his son to do? He wants his son to hit a home run too. Yep. Why does he want that? Why do I want that? We want that because we want our kids to do well. We want our kids to succeed. We want them to do well. We want them to have great things in their lives. So guess what that means, Tom? That means me and this guy that I have nothing in common with, I thought, have something, the biggest thing in common. We want our kids to do well. Okay, well, if you take a look at the USA right now, do you think this is the environment where kids are going to do well? Do you think when fentanyl is in every single zip code of this country that you're having to tell your kids, hey, don't ever swallow anything that didn't come from me or your doctor? If we're telling our kids stuff like that, I'm telling my 13-year-old and 11-year-old sons that now. I'm telling them fentanyl is now. This is where the country is today. That dad's worried about it. This dad is worried about it. That's what we have in common. That's it
totally
right there, man. And that is a serious bond. If we ever get down to that point, Tom, where we can see each other like that, the system is over. They lose.
100%. I think one of their greatest tools is names and labels, and they divide people through a lot of different things: gender, sex, race, religion, political ideology. You're black or white, you're gay or straight, you're left or right, you're Republican or Democrat, you're this or that. And it's like, why can't I just be American? or why can't I just be Canadian, or why can't I just be a person here, a free thinking person? But a lot of people are so used to being indoctrinated by the media and indoctrinated by things that certain concepts and people they look up to that they think have their best interests at heart, which they don't. And people, that's that the whole trick is not that the system has divided us. The trick is that the system has tricked us into dividing ourselves
Hmm.
by, okay, Christians over here, atheists over here, black folks over here, white folks over here, gays over here, straights over here, lefts over here, rights over here, Dems, Republic. They've tricked us into adopting these titles and holding them so close. They mean so much to us. They've tricked us into dividing ourselves. That's the biggest trick here. And it just goes back to what you were saying, that like, hey man, I'm not just like some super over devoted right wing Republican dude. I'm well aware that there's people on my side of the spectrum that don't have my best interest at heart either. But that free thinking sort of free thinking spirit sort of, I don't know if
It's a threat.
it's going extinct too.
Because it's a threat. I mean, Tom, that attitude, that is the original American attitude. That's the original American attitude. Is to never you're skeptical about all of it. You cannot be bent, you know. And so anybody that acts like that in 2023, they're a threat. And so they got to crush that threat, and they'll crush you however they can figure out how to crush you. In
Totally.
music, we know how they do it there, but they're doing it to people all over the place. I mean, you could be a welder in some welding shop in Iowa or Minnesota, and if you show up with the wrong bumper sticker on your truck and the boss don't like it, or the company above go, well, fire Earl. Earl's out. I don't like that bumper sticker. You know what I mean? And so that scares people, and rightfully so, because it's their livelihoods that are on the hook. They did the same thing with the vaccine. I mean, that's a whole nother subject we can talk about at some point. But they said you got to take it or you can't keep your job. You got to take it or you can't be in the military. You got to take it or what? Or I'm going to destroy your life. Well, what about the fact that we don't know what it's going to do long term? Doesn't matter. Take it or you lose your job. That's
Right.
called coercion, Tom. That's
Right.
coercion. That's illegal to do things
Right.
like that. I will give a little bit of hope to this crowd, because we're talking about a lot of things that we all talk about
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
all the time. I think that the atrocities, and that's what they are, that have occurred in this country and around the world will not go unchecked. I think there is a long tail on it. It's going to take a little while for it to actually, those chickens to come to roost, but it's going to happen.
Sure.
And in the meantime, all of us got to keep punching, and you keep a smile on your face. You don't fight like this, you fight like this, right? You have a good time and you punch. Enjoy
Yeah.
your life, enjoy your family, enjoy your friends, stick close to the people around you. Read your Bible. That's what I do. I tell people there's 31 chapters in the book of Proverbs, and the longest month has 31 days in it. So even if you don't have much time, which most of us don't, you can look at your icon and go, okay, today is March 22nd, Proverbs 22, bang, I'm going to read it. Put that into your system for a minute. Put that into your subconscious. Just absorb it for a minute and then go about your day. If you don't have something solid in your life and you're out here blowing in the wind, this is when people break down. This is when people snap. And I think that the government, the system that we're all in right now, they want to see us snap. They want to break us. They want to see people go, that's it, Uncle, I give up. What do I got to do to make this stop?
Right.
That's
Right.
what they're pushing for. And as long as we stay grounded and keep things in your life that cannot be moved, you'll never snap and you'll never break.
Right. And everybody's just got to do their part. And, like John said, just keep fighting with a smile on your face. And for me and John, at the present moment, our part in this whole thing is making music that we know to be true, making the soundtrack for the good fight, and and doing our thing as publicly as possible on as big a stage as possible, in spite of the backlash, in spite of how unpopular our opinions may be, and in spite of all the adversity that comes with it. I think that was John. For people that don't know John, John's been causing shit in country music for a long time. John's been very outspoken at many points in time and pissed off a lot of people in country music. John's a big disruptor in country music, and I think that obviously a lot of the people here are familiar with me. There's 8,000 of us now. A lot of you guys are familiar with me and know that I'm a disruptor in hip hop, and I think that that is John and I's role in this sort of culture role right now, or culture war rather, right now, is to continue to be outspoken, and to continue to disrupt, because there's not many of us that are able to, because a lot of people are locked into labels and contracts and all that type of stuff, and a lot of people are just simply unwilling to do it because they're afraid. And John and I share the same willingness to stand up and fight and make the music that we want to make and say the things that we want to say and attempt to wake up as many people as possible. We share the same willingness to do that, in the face of all the negativity that comes with standing on that hill. And I know we've talked about a lot of stuff here, guys. But to bring it back, everything that we're talking about is kind of ties back to why John and I get along so well, how John and I hooked up, and it's all of these shared ideas and similar opinions that we have. Those are the reason why we made End of the World together. That's why that song's so important. It is packed full to the brim of the truths and the ideas that John and I have been talking about for the last hour. So, like I said, it's 7:30. By this time tomorrow, Billboard will have stopped counting our numbers towards the Billboard charts. We have less than 24 hours right now to get as many downloads as humanly possible on iTunes or Amazon. You got an iPhone, hit up iTunes. You got an Android, hit up Amazon. Download myself and John Rich's new song, End of the World. And let's all make a massive, massive statement. They stop counting the numbers tomorrow, and on Tuesday, they're going to announce who's number one on Billboard. And there's 8,000 of us here right now. If 8,000 people took 20 seconds out of their day to download this song on iTunes or Amazon, we will be number one, period.
Close, yeah. Yeah,
So-
and hear it too. I mean, if you like what you heard tonight, you guys go right on, man. I like these two guys. Take the song, take that video, and post it around, and tell your friends, hey, go get this song. We're trying to make a statement with this, and your people will stand up and do it. We appreciate you guys, and listen, I've had a great life because I've had so many fans stay at my back and back me up, no matter what. And that gives guys like me and Tom the fuel in the tank and the courage and the fire in the belly to keep coming with music like this. If nobody was downloading it and nobody wanted to hear it, man, that'd be a tough road for guys like me and Tom. If we were the only guys listening to it, be like, man, I thought they'd like that, but nobody, I guess I am the only one. But we realize, no, we're not the only ones. We just have been blessed to be put in a position where we get to say out loud what you're thinking in private. And if
Absolutely.
you continue, you guys support us like you have been, and I promise you, guys like me and Tom keep punching and bringing the fire.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Well, John, I know when John said, hey man, John and I got off an interview together today, and he said, you know what? Like, we're doing all these interviews. Why don't we do our own interview and talk to some folks on YouTube? And I said, yeah, well, when do you want to do it? Does tonight work for you? And John was like, well, shit. I'm putting the kids to bed and I'm sitting around at the house. Yeah, tonight could work for me. I got about like 20 minutes, half an hour. Now here we are going on like an hour and 10 minutes here.
Yeah.
And we've just got totally lost in this. And I'm sure that we could. I'm sure that we could hang out on here for another couple hours. But I'm going to give John. I'm going to give John his opportunity to take the easy out right now because I'm sure he's tired.
I'm wondering, Tom, if this turns into the new podcast of the ages that you and I just once a week sit here and have conversations about what's going on.
Is that it? Cowboy hats and face tats?
Maybe cowboy hats and face tats. Welcome to the podcast. I would watch that.
Yo, I would love that, dude.
Tom, I appreciate you. I admire you. Nova, listen, the work that girl does and the talent that she has, listen, unheard of. If that girl wanted to have a job making 7 figures working for a major production company, she would have it overnight. Okay. She doesn't even want that. She wants.
Don't tell her that, man. I'm gonna lose her.
You might sign her up for that one if it's 7 figures, but you know, she's one of the weapons that are out there that are behind the scenes that are putting her talents on the line and her energy and time and exhausting herself, exhausting her potential to make great visuals and make great things happen behind this music. And I just want to recognize that. I know everybody watching knows who she is, but man, as a guy who's been around a long time, I've worked with the best of the best. That is unbelievable, the amount of talent that is, and God only knows how much effort. So Nova, thank you very much. I can't wait to meet you. Come to my house in Nashville. We'll both stand out in the front and say, hell yeah, Tom.
Hell yeah. Sounds good, brother. Well, it was a total pleasure. And John, man, I just got to say, dude, as somebody that's admired your artistry from afar for a long time, getting to know you these last couple years, and especially in these last few weeks that we've been working on this song together, admire you as a person even more than I ever could admire somebody's artistry. You're a true badass. You're a true American patriot. You are a true to the roots country singer. It was an absolute honor to have you on the song with me, man. It wouldn't be the same if it was anybody else. And I just wanted to say thank you. It meant the world. I love this song. You took it to a new place for me. And I'm going to be your biggest fan forever. So
appreciate it, brother. God bless you and have a great night. Good night to everybody out there in music land. Appreciate you.
Talk to you soon, John.